Welcome to another episode of Into the Fringe. Today with me, I have a senior border patrol agent, right?
I don't know. I don't think that existed when I came in as, I don't know, maybe not.
Whatever. How do you want me to address you? What is the title that you would use right now?
Border Patrol agent.
Border Patrol agent.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
We're here with Border Patrol agent Katie Griffith. Griffith.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of discussions about Griffith, and all the famous people that are named that.
Yeah, including me.
Including you. Now you're famous. You're on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy that you're here as well. We tend to interview recently a lot of people here at headquarters because, they're just a few floors up. But the intention of this podcast was never that. And there might be a little bit of a disconnect from the boots on the ground, agents who work in the field, and they want to feel that there's a voice for them. And the intention of this podcast was to be a voice for them, in support of them, who acknowledge them, who see them.
Right.
And so having you here today, I think that helps me because your story is nothing but them. It's the same thing. Right. You've chewed the same dirt. You've worked the same areas.
Right.
So let's talk about that. Where are you from?
Born and raised in York, Pennsylvania.
Where's that?
That's about 2.5 hours north of here.
How did you hear about the Border Patrol?
Isn't that funny? I was driving in my car and I heard an ad on the radio, a radio ad.
So they do work.
Yeah, they do.
Good to know.
And I was just about ready to graduate college with my criminal justice degree, looking for federal law enforcement employment, pretty much anywhere I could get, into it. And then I found out that Border Patrol had horses that I could ride.
That was it.
And that was it. That's what sold me on doing that.
So where did you go to college?
A really small Catholic school outside of Philadelphia, Alvernia College. It's now a university. That was my undergrad. And so but now pursuing a post-grad degree at Penn State.
Oh, nice. That's cool. Yeah. My daughter graduated from Ohio State.
Oh, geez. Okay. Next subject.
So I think it's fascinating that, you graduated with your bachelor's in criminal justice in the federal system. And usually that's, people think FBI, ATF, right. the list of the three letters.
Right.
You don't really often think about the Border Patrol.
Right. And I'd never, ever heard of it before that radio ad.
So did you do more research after that?
I did. I said, well, I guess I'll look into this. And then I went online and looked at the website. And then I saw someone on a horse. And then I was like, this is it.
Tell me about that. What's the horse thing for you?
So I grew up riding and showing horses with my family. My mom was a big horse lady. And so from a very, very young age, I was riding horses and then just continued throughout my career. So I knew that I wanted to do federal law enforcement. That was definitely on my agenda. But to be able to incorporate my passion for horses was just like a double whammy. I couldn't beat it.
So you said you show horses. There's certain events. I'm not too familiar, but I know I'm a little bit.
Okay.
So what events did you do?
So I did a lot of Western events, which you see a lot of agents out in the field using Western attire, Western saddles, and that's how I grew up riding. And then I did a lot of rodeos and stuff. So barrel racing. Yeah, and I still do it when I find time when I'm home and I can still call my horse out. Then I'll go to races at home. So.
Well, that's exciting because I know what job you're going into next. So that's even exciting. We'll get to that later, but. Man, have you ever had any bad falls?
Not at a race, but which is good. Yeah. I don't want anybody to see that, but definitely
in training.
In training, yeah, it's inevitable.
Great, man. So, what year did you join the Border Patrol?
January of 2007.
Nice. What class number?
651.
Old school, hardcore.
The tall rope.
Yeah, the tall rope. Yeah, that's what I hear. And the harder Spanish.
Yeah, I want to say I had to retain it past, the academy of 7 and 10 month kind of stuff.
Yeah. Those.
So the anxiety didn't stop at the academy. You still had to.
Can you explain that for those who are newer, who are my era, why it was harder in the Spanish portion back then compared to now?
I don't know what it's like now, obviously, but for someone who's not a native Spanish speaker, going into it was scary to begin with. And that was definitely my downfall at the academy was Spanish. You can ask any of my classmates. But retaining that information afterwards, because you had 2 additional tests when you were 7 months in and 10 months in that you needed to regurgitate, the jurat and all this other legal documentation in Spanish, and you pretty much had to memerize it.
Yeah. And if you didn't, you can get fired.
You could get fired.
That was a big difference. That was a big stress, because I remember when I joined, we didn't have that.
Right.
I just had to go through the Spanish portion. Yes, I had to go through the Spanish portion. So it was tough enough as it is. You learned the working Spanish, but after that, when you got your sector, they just kind of, they wanted you to get better at Spanish. They wanted to keep pushing you. They definitely wanted that. But I don't think there was anything of concern if you didn't, there was no test after that. You've gotten through the Spanish portion.
Sure.
So I remember that fear when I was first hearing about it. I'm like, dang, man. And I heard it was tough. Like you had to be really good compared to me. I was like, manos arriba.
Yeah. Well, I was the same,
I never got great. I'm not gonna lie. I never got good. My buddies, my fellow agents would laugh at me if I said I was good at it. No.
Yeah. My classmates would tell me to say certain ththings knowing that it was wrong, and then I would say it.
I wrote a story in the book that I wrote about the Border Patrol, and I said, "Como me llamo?" And I was yelling at the dude, like, "Como me llamo?" And my partner's like, "What are you asking him?" So I'm asking his name. He's like, "No, dude, you're asking, tell me my name. What's my name?" And I was like, ugh. So I didn't live that one down for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my Spanish.
Yeah, I'm not too far behind you on that. Yeah.
So you get into the Border Patrol. What was your first duty station?
Imperial Beach.
Imperial Beach. How'd you feel about that?
Lucky. Yeah, very lucky. And then the horses were right there. The horse patrol horses were right next door. And I was like, this is it. Yeah, I got the beach.
That's nice.
There's horses here. Yeah. San Diego.
And so how long did it take for you to finally get to be a horse patrol?
2 years, right at my 2-year probation, when probation was that long. The solicitation came out like a week before my probation was up, and I thought this was like an omen. So I put in, and then I didn't go back to the station after that.
During your first 2 years as an agent, tell me a story, something about that probably stands out in those 2 years for you as an experience of being an agent in the field.
I just, the first group that we apprehended on the FTO, I remember being just kind of like frozen in time, because it was kind of like a circus, I would say. I mean, the groups were coming over, and at that time it was very, busy, kind of like an unwrangled situation.
Yeah.
So, you freeze in your tracks. You see the group, they see you, your field training operator officers screaming at you to go apprehend them, and you just, you're trying to apply everything you've learned in the academy into real life, and you're just
it's like
literally.
And it's it's funny in my head was like, now are these them? Like is this what I was trained to do? Because my first experience, it was 3 crossing the road, just running across while we're in the FTO vehicle, same thing. And I'm like, is that illegals? Like, I don't know. Or is that like just people working and running across? Like, I had no idea. Right. And the agent, the FTO was like, yes, there we go, go. Yeah, and we jumped out, we start running, you know what I mean? And it was just like, what do I do? Right. And so I'm like, Barate! Trying to get him to stop. But like, that first moment, you're like, this is the job.
Yeah, exactly. And then it gets more familiar with you. The more groups you catch, the more, accustomed you get to
the routine of it all.
Right. And it becomes secondhand, and you just do it.
In your first 2 years, did you ever catch drugs?
Not at IB. It just wasn't a very like high traffic area for drugs. I mean, there were some times where we got some heroin and stuff from like 1326s that came, but nothing substantial. It was a lot of body traffic though. Yeah.
That's great. And then you finally get into the horse patrol.
Yeah.
How was that?
Great. It was, as I said, this is exactly what I should be doing. I really felt like I had made it, carrying a gun, enforcing laws, riding a horse.
That's awesome. And fast forward, where you're at now.
I am a BPAP over recruiting for the northeast of the United States.
It's kind of full circle.
Yeah, right? Back home. I'm literally in my hometown again.
Well, the crazy thing to me is that you were sucked into this career field by recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, a radio, know, and now you're doing recruiting now. Do you guys do any kind of radio traffic now?
Not necessarily. It's a lot of in person
and social media.
And social media is huge for us, and it goes a long way.
So you're back home.
Yeah,
doing the job.
So a success of the recruiting circle. you know?
That's cool.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Everyone hears about Border Patrol so different, whether it's a lineage thing, a family thing, a friend thing, or it's just completely falls on their lap.
Right.
Several people I've met recently have joined because of a podcast I did back in like 2014. And I was probably one of the first like Border Patrol agents doing these podcasts talking about the career field.
Yeah.
And, I was still an agent and I got asked to do a couple I was like, I'll talk about it, in a smart way. And that's what people were like, oh, I never knew the Border Patrol was that cool. And I was a Border Star agent. So like, I'm talking about the cool stuff that a Border Star gets to do.
Right.
So you got military guys like me. I looked into it because of your podcast. And it's kind of turned into that thing where people fall upon the story of the Border Patrol through podcasting, YouTube, or whatever it is these days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty exciting to know that the recruiting is working. Yeah. And those of you listening are not Border Patrol, look into it. But we're here today to talk about something a little bit more serious. I'm wearing the pink button. What do I call it? Device?
Device. You know, a pink pin.
Yeah. Because this month is October, and it's also known as Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Right.
Huh. Right? That
big sigh, yeah. Oof. Yeah.
So I want to talk about that and the connection to you and your life.
Okay.
So I heard about your story, and I would love to dig into that a little bit.
Okay.
Tell me about your mom.
So my mom, a fantastic individual who also loved animals, but more specifically horses. And she's the reason that I am the rider that I am today. And she, everywhere she was, I was her shadow. She was in the saddle, I was in the saddle. She was out cleaning stalls, I was out cleaning the stalls. So it was literally her and I all the time. And so when she was 42, she discovered a lump in her breast. It was Easter morning. I believe it was just a self-exam. And then she went into the OBGYN, who then referred her to an oncologist, and they found out that she was positive for breast cancer.
Let me stop you there. She was doing a self-exam. Mm-hmm. Is this something that you knew commonly? She checked herself?
I didn't know. No. I had no idea that was even a thing before.
She never talked to you about that either growing up?
No.
That's interesting.
I was young, so I didn't really. I think maybe just disconnected from it too.
Yeah. Yeah. So during a self-examination meeting, she's just kind of feeling around and feels some anomaly, right? A lump of some sort.
Correct.
And she goes to the doctor and they find out it's positive breast cancer.
Correct.
How fast is she going to start treatment?
Almost immediately. Chemotherapy, radiation, and it took a huge toll on her health. She really became very ill from chemotherapy and radiation, but it was at the time really the only way to combat the disease.
And you were where at the time?
I was in high school.
High school?
Mm-hmm. So I knew what was going on, but very much in denial about the situation. I thought, oh, it's just, she'll be fine.
She's tough. She'll get through it.
Yeah, exactly.
She went through her chemotherapy and they identified that she was now in remission.
Correct.
And how long did it take for that to happen?
I believe it was a year, full circle to, where she was in the clear, in remission after all her treatments were done. And she kind of, got the green light that she was fine.
Yeah.
And so then we kind of all, were very grateful for that situation and kind of forgot about it and put it in the past.
Kind of go, life goes back to normal.
Right.
And what some probably don't know is that when you're given the clear or in remission, they still have to do annual checks, right, for a certain amount of years. Is that correct?
Yes. The most dangerous portion of your remission is that 5-year window where it can come back, right? And that's where you really have to be careful, is because it's more, if you make it past that 5-year mark, then you're in the clear. But if it's not, then you're still kind of in the danger zone. But you're still going in and getting mammograms, MRIs, ultrasounds, and stuff like that to see if everything's still fine in there.
And a couple of years later,
it came back. And it came back more aggressive than it had been before. At that point, I was in college and not home, not in my hometown anymore. And so my dad was just kind of dealing with it on his own, very quietly, just helping my mom out. But it had been to the point where it was aggressive that it had spread into her lymph nodes.
Did they not tell you how serious it was at the time?
It didn't. And
Just trying to protect you from that?
they were. My brother and I were both in college, and they didn't want either one of us to fault
You
in
had to
any
drop
way.
out and try and come home or something?
Right. And I respect their decision for that. Although I do wish I had known so I could spend, if I knew that it was imminent, I would have come home and spent more time with her. But I knew that's not that they had wanted,
It's not what she wanted, probably.
Right. I'm sure my dad asked her, what would you want to do in this situation with the kids? Do you want to tell them or not tell them? So it's a double-edged sword a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Part of me would say that I'd want the choice to make for myself. But as a parent, I'd probably not tell my kids either as much.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's something that I held on to for a long, long time. I was angry about it. I was.
And tell me about when she passed.
So my brother and I were both in school away, and I was traveling for a field hockey game, and I had a little Nokia cell phone at the time, and it came back from the game, and there was a voice message from my neighbor, and she said, "Katie, you should probably come home. Your mom's not doing well." So I went home, and my brother, he had to jump on the train and head home as well. So we were both a little in the dark about it. We weren't sure really what was going on. My dad had brought her up to school a couple of times because she had lost the ability to walk.
Yeah.
And then eventually lost the ability to talk. And then she was just bedridden after that. So it was.
Were you mentally prepared for that?
No, absolutely not. I still don't think I am. I still don't think I've grasped the entirety of the situation. But at the time, no, I still was in very much denial that this was.
She was going to get through it.
Right. There was no way that this woman was going to die. Yeah. No way. And so we went home. She was in hospice care at the house. And I remember laying in bed and praying that nothing terrible would happen. Yeah. And she ended up passing away on September 11th of 2003. So just a bad day all around, just absolutely terrible.
Did you get to say goodbye?
I did. So my brother and my dad and I were with her when she passed at home, which, and she was nonverbal, completely nonverbal. And I know that my brother and I just wanted to hear, we kept leaning over her and saying, we love you, we love you. And we wanted just to hear that one last time. And she muttered it very so slightly before she had passed away. So.
I'm sorry to hear that. So this subject is extremely important to you.
It is.
And you joined the Border Patrol shortly after.
I did.
And one of the initiatives that you and several other agents pushed forward was these devices.
It was.
Tell me about that.
In 2017, I believe the year was, I wrote an issue paper with a few other female agents who were directly affected by breast cancer in some way. About the importance of breast cancer awareness and how we thought the device should be something that would be a national issued wear situation. And so in the issue paper, you write the pros, the cons, the setbacks, the means of obtaining a device, stuff like that. And so all of our issue papers look different,
right,
from different perspectives. Lots of facts in there about breast cancer, statistics, and stuff like that. I love doing research, so I really wanted to make sure that it held a lot of weight. And so it was pushed up and eventually approved.
It's incredible. It's incredible to be a part of this initiative. It's incredible that you're here to talk about it and use your mother's memory in the way you have.
Right.
What are some things that our agents can do to kind of, I guess, monitor themselves? And what are some initiatives or things that you would like to tell the agents that they should be looking out for, as well as kind of, I guess, being ahead of this?
Right. I think it's important to discuss that it's not only exclusive to women, yes, right? So men can have breast cancer too. It is about 1% of all diagnoses are men. So it is low, but it is possible.
That's all I need to know.
Right?
Right.
It's there. It exists. Everybody's at risk at some degree. But what men and women should be doing are monthly exams to make sure that if you feel anything abnormal, anything that hurts, abnormalities, lumps, bumps, redness, anything like that. And then if you're over the age of 40, you should be getting a yearly mammogram. If you're high risk, which I am, you should be getting mammograms 10 years prior to that. So I started getting mammograms, ultrasounds, and MRIs when I was 30.
Yeah, and because your direct connection with your mother.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
family
have a high
history.
risk.
Yeah. So
For men, I don't know. Excuse my ignorance. Do we do mammograms as well?
yeah, they do. There are possibilities for that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're not pleasant experiences, but they're necessary.
I've seen the videos. They don't look
No, they're not.
comfortable.
No, they're not.
And so, if you don't mind, can you explain to the agents who will be listening what they can do to kind of better prepare themselves or get ahead of this?
Right. So you should be doing monthly exams. This is men and women, because no one is exempt from this situation. Monthly exams, that's just feeling for any lumps, bumps, soreness, redness, or pain in the area. And then after that, mammograms yearly for women over the age of 40. And then if you're under the age of 40 and high risk, then you should be getting a mammogram every year. I started getting mammograms, MRIs, and ultrasounds when I was 30 because of my high risk. So those steps are important. And we're finding that women under the age of 45 are getting diagnosed more frequently, and it's more aggressive because it's just not something that's really kind of been in the limelight. It's more, women generally get it post-menopausal, close to menopause. But we're seeing that women are getting it at younger ages, and it's in later stages. And so it's more aggressive. I actually have two friends that 35 years old, and they both have breast cancer.
Really?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a very important subject, and younger, we have to just be more aware of that.
Right.
It's what most probably agents don't know is that we do have agents who are currently going through this personally now, and or have in the past. And so this is a subject that we wanted to make sure we brought to the forefront for you guys listening. Please do your best and do your research into this and look more into that. Is there anything else we want to talk about for that, and how we can kind of better prepare our agents for that?
We have, I think it's good to remind people that we do have a lot of resources available to us. So not only doing your monthly exam, mammograms, MRIs, ultrasounds, but also being an advocate for yourself, right? Because nobody's going to force you to go to the doctor and get checked out. You have to want to have that early detection for your success, right? And so through BP, we have a lot of resources available to us. We have peer support, and we have chaplains to lean on. If you have a situation that becomes overwhelming to you, and maybe you don't have support or you don't know how to get support. And then EAP. We also have EAP. And there are a lot of agents that are also, like you said, going through this situation themselves. So it's good to lean on those agents as well. Maybe they know the right doctor to go to in the area, or they have some advice for you, or, hey, I've been there, I've been through it. This is what you do.
Maybe even think about having this conversation during muster. Some of you supervisors out there, maybe opening this discourse and this dialogue to your agents so they're a little bit more comfortable with the subject.
Right. It can be an uncomfortable situation to talk about, but it's necessary. 1 in 8 women in their life will get diagnosed with breast cancer. So you think of your grandmother, your mother, your sister, your wife.
Just think about the female agents we have.
Yeah, the people that are sitting next to you in muster, your backup, that who knows, she might have already gone through it and silently didn't tell anybody, or it could be happening in her future. It's very imminent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where can someone acquire one of these?
You should be asking your local MWR at your stations. Most of them already have them available, but I do know that other station MWRs will ship them out if you'd like them. They should be ready, available. They've been in production for many years now. So,
well, thank you for your time. It is a very important message to give, especially during this month. I appreciate you sharing your story. I know it's not easy to talk about, but you did it gracefully. And
thank you.
And your mother, she's a testament to her. She's raised an incredible woman.
Thank you.
And those of you who have questions and you don't know who to go to, you can use us as a resource as well. Reach out to us here at HQ. We can direct traffic. Again, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Into the Fringe. Take care.
You never know what's ahead. But once you start, it's all or nothing. Because it's not just tradition, looking danger in the eyes, refusing to let it stop you. So summon your courage, trust your training, Trust your team, and trust that when the work is done, you'll look back proud you defended your legacy, knowing exactly what and who you were protecting.